Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Today is explanation of upcoming episode Throne of Steel based on novel. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. So let's start. After fusing, spiritual stoves would produce an effect of accumulation, and this would increase their efficiency. This was absolutely a good thing for anyone, but was it really so easy to fuse spiritual stoves? Getting the opportunity to fuse spiritual stoves was first of all extremely hard, to say nothing about the fact that the fusion itself involved an enormous part of uncertainty and risk. Long Hao Yue's group had obtained such a great opportunity, but it was still too early to say whether they would be able to benefit from it. Soaked in the green pool, Long Hao Yue was in a sudden calm state of mind. After his awakening as a God's chosen one, his mind was even more focused, and reached an optimum state very easily. Immediately, he sensed his own body being wrapped in a vital energy, permeating him gently. This energy of life entered his body slowly, or at least it felt like it. This harmless and beneficial energy merged with Long Hao Yue's liquid spiritual energy, enforcing his body and mind, and soon he reached a complete level of relaxation. All his muscles and energy channels actually went all limp at this time. Gradually, this soft vital energy covered his whole body, before slowly rushing into his chest. There, it slowly subsided. The light elemental fairy Yating was seated inside the saint's spiritual stove as this thin green-colored vital energy was poured into the saint's spiritual stove. Immediately, a mysterious change was produced. Both of Yating's hands started to adopt a particular pose. As her face revealed a happy expression, she entered a special state. After following Long Hao Yue, Yating had already evolved 3 times. Let alone him, even a lot of powerhouses that reached the 8th or the 9th step didn't necessarily make their spiritual stoves evolve that often. 3 evolutions gave Yating a nearly corporeal body, and in the illusory paradise, she had managed to obtain vital energy of her own. In some kind of sense, she was already not as simple as a mere spiritual stove, and her intelligence was substantial. As long as she kept evolving, she would one day finally reach the level of an intelligent spiritual stove which Long Hao Yue had mentioned before. And that day, she would reach the highest possible tier as a spiritual stove. For this reason, when Long Hao Yue fused his saint spiritual stove and his fairy of light Yating, the difficulty was a lot harder than for anyone else. Of course, the pain Long Hao Yue had to bear was absolutely not the fiercest, at least Cai had an even harder time than him. Roughly half an hour later, Hao Yue gradually came back to his senses. Just like Zhong Fangfang said, his trial had been successful. After fusing, the 2 spiritual stoves became a brand new one, called Protection of Light. This spiritual stove was a formidable one, and could be used under any circumstances, allowing Hao Yue to unleash a protection of light over a range of 5 meters. This protection of light could reach a defensive power 3 times stronger than his own power, reaching the defensive strength of a divine obstruction. At the same time, when he would use the protection of light, in the covered area, except from those of darkness elemental properties, the spiritual energy from everyone inside would be recovered at a 10-fold speed until reaching its peak. Without a doubt, this spiritual stove would strengthen along with him. The only pity was that after this fusion, the protection of light seemed unable to evolve. As a whole, this spiritual stove was still a bit inferior to the spiritual stove of Second Life belonging to Zhong Fangfang. Lin Xin was the next one to appear from a green mist of light, looking totally worn out. "Hey, has drugs bro, you okay? If the fusion failed, just let it be, it's okay as long as you are alright," Wang Yuanyuan said, trying to console him. Hao Yue said with a bitter face, this fusion was just too hard, to the point that even his control over fire turned out insufficient. "Who said that I failed? I'm just pained over my hair." Reaching this point, Lin Xin couldn't help but keep crying. Nonetheless, his appearance was enough to cause anyone to feel sympathy. His magic gown was burnt to scrap, and on his head was just a large black swatch of hair. His graceful dark green hair was completely reduced to charcoal, and the same went for his eyebrows. Nonetheless, looking at him, he was in a better state than Hao Yue and Zhong Fangfang at that time. At least he didn't collapse immediately. Wang Yuanyuan declared unhappily, "Just let him cry, until he dies of it. What is there to feel sorry for the loss of your hair? This is good too, you'll be bald just like Sima." It will make you look more like a man. Perhaps Sister Shina will like you even more. Really? Lin Xin's crying voice dissipated a little, as he raised his head, his eyes still hazy with tears, and asked. Wang Yuanyuan Shryly replied, nope, that was a lie. Zhong Fangfang said with a smile, no matter what, we have so far at least all succeeded. I hope the others will clear their trials successfully too. After no less than half an hour, Chen Yinge and Sima Xian appeared nearly at the same time. It was just that the two of them were in totally different shapes. Chen Yinge looked messy, and immediately fell unconscious in Wang Yuanyuan's arms. Her clothes were soaked with sweat and had gone completely transparent. She couldn't bear it any longer and collapsed with great effect. Sima Xian's appearance was even more miserable than hers. At the time he appeared, he looked like a piece of barbecue meat. He smashed onto the ground, carrying a fragrant smell of burned meat. His skin looked totally carbonized, and some parts of his flesh really looked roasted. Han Yu and Zhong Fangfang healed him with their full strength, before Sima Xian could at last be considered to have come back to life. But the two of them were still unconscious, and didn't wake up even after half an hour. In particular, Sima Xian had really sustained very serious damage to his body. Taking Lin Xin's pills, and getting healed only kept him barely alive and no more. It was hard to say whether there would be sequelae from the aftermath. A golden light ripped through the green light, and a golden figure emerged from the fog of light. Of the light element, Sima Xian, Han Yu, and Zhong Fangfang had all already appeared, and Long Haochen was the last one left to appear. However, right at that time, everyone looked simply lifeless. This was because from that green fog of light, a slender and smooth pure white leg appeared. The illusory paradise was undoubtedly the most fitting place for a fairy to live, and because of this coincidence of fate, Yating had absorbed a huge amount of vital and light essence. All her wounds had been completely healed, and she had obtained a corporeal body in the process. Of course, she didn't really become human. She still remained an entity made of energy. However, it was just that the energy reached such a high level of condensation that it produced an almost physical entity. Just like Long Haochen said, she was now a real fairy and not just an elemental fairy anymore. The Saint Spiritual Stove was in comparison visibly weaker than Yating. Its attractive ability had been similarly absorbed by Yating, and even Long Haochen's broken blue rain, hibiscus of light, was now incorporated into Yating's body. Even if it got restored in the future, Long Haochen would need Yating to hand it to him to use it. The case Long Haochen had worried over still happened, and the attractive ability of the Saint Spiritual Stove changed in the process of fusion, becoming a part of Yating's abilities. As a whole, the fusion could be said to be a benefit entirely for Yating. Of course, Yating was still Long Haochen's spiritual stove, and their agreement didn't change, but only solidified the direct connection between their thoughts. The difference from before was that the current Yating was an individual of her own, blessed with the ability to think for herself and intelligence. Now, she could act as a real independent light mage. She was capable of accomplishing everything a light mage of the same rank could accomplish, maybe even better than the latter. As for the growth of her strength, it all depended on Long Haochen. To Yating, this change was truly very satisfying, and her view of Long Haochen had changed entirely. This was however the thing that gave Long Haochen the greatest headache. He was the most unwilling to see Caia become unhappy over Yating's change. He would be happy to act as Yating's friend, but there could never be anything more than that. How beautiful. If I didn't already have Shina, I would have really fallen for you. Lin Xin declared without any shame, carrying a pitiful expression that caused all the others to be unable to help but reveal a smile despite the situation. Long Haochen told Yating, please change back to your original size. Yating pouted in response, but master, this will reduce my strength. Long Haochen revealed a forced smile, it should do if you go back to the size you had before. At the time we will need you to go all out, you can just come back to this form. Yating's evolution gave her even the ability of human speech, okay. Yating nodded, somewhat dissatisfied, and under the regretful male gazes, the halo of light vanished as she returned rapidly to a small size. This reduction in size was very thorough, to the point that she was now only about 1/3 of a meter in length, flying to Long Haochen's shoulder where she sat today. Although she already returned to a small size, Long Haochen still felt a bit awkward about her sitting on his shoulder. But he had already ordered Yating to do something she didn't want to do out of selfishness, so asking for more wouldn't be good. However, Long Haochen once again wore a sluggish look, and it was exactly because of Kia's shaking. It was strong enough to affect him and caused the careless move that followed. His right hand slipped on her chest, and grabbed a mellow and soft rising mound. His fingers and palm cupped it, and even if he had been more ignorant in this regard, he would still have known what he was touching. At the instant that happened, Kia's eyes were already open and she happened to feel the warmth of his large hand on her. Staring at each other, the two looked just as dull as their counterpart. Cai's trembling voice was light, and a rose-colored blush appeared on her face, spreading smoothly even to her neck. Long Haochen didn't know how to react. Moving his hand wasn't the solution, and getting out of the way wasn't right either. And his astonishing impulse actually urged him to continue. Raising her arms with an exaggerated movement, Cai's pearly white teeth bit her own lips as she held Long Haochen with both of her hands, pressing her own body even closer to his. Not daring to look at him any further, she could feel her own heartbeat accelerate as her level of panic increased. However, her panic and shyness aside, she felt more satisfied than anything else. After experiencing the inhuman pain from the fusion of her spiritual stoves, the first one she saw after regaining consciousness was him. The feeling of intimacy from her body reached an embarrassing level, but first of all, the first one she got to see after experiencing all this pain was her beloved man. What could please her more than that? Thus, she didn't blame Long Haochen in any way, and on top of that, she trusted in Long Haochen not being the kind of person to take advantage of somebody's weaknesses. The gentle light essence filling her body was already proof that he was just healing her. Or perhaps did he happen to heal her at that place? When one really loved another person exceedingly, no matter what mistakes the loved one would make, the lover would often only see their good points. However, this in turn brought Long Haochen a totally different sensation. At every special place of his body, Long Haochen felt his willpower being exposed to an even more terrible trial than at the time of the fusion between his spiritual stoves. His whole body was stiff from that. Never forget that he is after all a young and vigorous little virgin. Furthermore, he matured a lot faster than the others of his age, and his level of maturity was idiot. Why are you still not giving me clothes to put on? Kia's face was buried in his chest as she spoke these words in a small voice. Oh, yeah. Hearing Kia's words, Long Haochen hurried to take out some of his own clothes from the eternal melody. Not worrying about the clothes she was given to wear, Kia already stood up from the pool of water. Her movement was very fast, and with a turn of her body, Long Haochen's clothing already covered up her figure. However, because she was only clad in upper garment, the sight of her slender thighs was unavoidable, and in spite of the cover that it formed at the crucial area, this gave off an all the more mysterious alluring feeling. Long Haochen foolishly looked at her. His eyesight was incomparably good, and although he only had a glance at Cai's changing, he still saw what he shouldn't have seen, and seemed to have seen everything. Now, he didn't even dare move, for fear that the fiery feeling in his heart would surge out. Not daring to show any affectionate movement towards Kia, he was currently like a fire surrounded by surges of oil, ready to turn into raging flames any time. Seeing his thoroughly red face, Kia only sneaked a glance at him before running to his bag. You are not permitted to peep. Oh, yeah. Long Haochen gave an answer with difficulty, but the sight of his Adam's apple gulping back his saliva sold him off. Kia's thighs looked different than Yating's. Long Haochen found out to his shock that a certain thought reached his brain. This thought was that Yating was certainly beautiful, from her long and slender legs to her perfectly straight, rich and flawless figure, but although Kia lacked a lot in comparison, her leg had a sleek curve and her body a sweet scent very unique to young human girls. More importantly, seeing her leg, although Long Haochen felt bashful, it felt like releasing him of all burdens. All right, time for us to go now. Kia's soft voice sounded at his back. After his awakening as a god's chosen one, his control over the light element was visibly a lot stronger, to the extent that he managed to manipulate the eternal melody all the more smoothly. On top of that, he was already back to the illusory shrine, and wasn't in the illusory paradise anymore. Thus, getting transported back didn't take up so much spiritual energy. After waking Zhong Fangfang and letting Yating return into his own body, Long Haochen led the group of 3 out of the illusory shrine. 3 days wasn't a long period, but it wasn't short either. Both the Temple Alliance and the demons were waiting impatiently outside the shrine. After all, this time, very important figures from both sides had participated. On the demons' side, the 10 chosen candidates were young powerhouses of great lineage, whereas from the Temple Alliance 10 promising demon hunters, including the Scion of Light and the Saint Daughter of Samsara, had participated. Therefore, both sides were nervous beyond compare. As soon as they saw a figure emerge from that dark green shrine, Ling Xiao and Huang Shuo couldn't help but stand up and swiftly rushed to the lakeside. Both parties' powerhouses were in a state of mutual hostility, and in case any change occurred, a battle could very possibly break out any moment. Long Haochen was walking in the front, and seeing him, Han Qian felt a great load fall off from his mind. Unconsciously he gave a look to the temple knight who calmly watched Long Haochen, making good preparations in case of the demon's possible attacks. Behind Long Haochen followed Kia, and then came Zhong Fangfang. Ying Suifeng and Ling Xiao relaxed at the same time. No matter what one could say, the most important thing was that the Scion of Light and the Saint Daughter of Samsara returned safely. And looking at them, they undoubtedly didn't come back empty-handed. However, Ling Xiao's expression rapidly grew unsightly, because they were the only 3 to come back from the illusory paradise. As for the captain of the Black Dragon's Imperial Guard Huang Shuo, his expressions grew all the more unsightly. The fact that the humans were the first to come out was no good news to him. Rapidly, Long Haochen's group of 3 returned to the side of the Temple Alliance. The others didn't come out yet? Ling Xiao asked Long Haochen. Long Haochen let out a sigh, lowering his head. His expression already told a lot to Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao's face immediately looked ashened. These had been demon hunters from commander-grade demon hunt squads. Their loss implied that 7 demon hunt squads were in danger of breaking apart, and the blame for this would be for the priest temple to bear. In fact, Huang Shuo wasn't an ordinary powerhouse of the 9th step. His strength already reached the peak of the 2nd rank of the 9th step, his total spiritual energy reaching close to 300,000 units. Even for the demons, this level was attained only by a few powerhouses. He acted as the representative of the demon god emperor and yet perceived the enemy as a threat, so this hidden powerhouse had to reach a terrifying level of strength. With him here, in case a battle broke out, the damage their demon group would sustain would certainly be considerable. They were after all in the human territory. Long Haochen shouted aloud. However, the demons also paid a considerable price this time. Although they were all powerhouses that came this time, among them were several successors of demon gods. Their group was led by the successor of the demon god emperor, Bao. Still, they didn't pay a low price either. Saying that, with a flick of his hand, he revealed a black flame in his hand. This flame clearly didn't emit the holy properties related to Long Haochen, and everyone saw the shape of crystal crown appear in his hand. This was exactly the crown of heritage from that fiend of blue flames named Shenshong. Seeing this magical crystal, the powerhouses from the Temple Alliance couldn't help but cry out in surprise. This confirmed Long Haochen's prior words without a doubt. On the other side, Huang Shuo's look became all the more ugly. Of course, he recognized the owner of this magical crystal. Although the owner of that crystal wasn't the most powerful demon that participated this time, he was still at least among the top 5 in overall strength. No matter what, he had no idea how this crystal could have fallen into Long Haochen's hands. Seeing his appearance, he didn't reach 20 years in age. Humans and demons were not the same, and he could tell his rough age at a mere glance. Indifferently, Long Haochen produced a brilliant flicker of light, as his eyes were filled with an ice-cold look. The stare he gave Huang Shuo didn't give off a weak impression. At least 3 human survivors left the illusory paradise this time. As for you, reaching this point, he deliberately paused his words. Even if Huang Shuo was calm, he still couldn't help but be in great turmoil at that time. Looking at the distant illusory shrine, he immediately became pale. At the present time, the demon god emperor of the Devil Dragon clan had only 2 children, Bao and Leng Xiao, and both had entered the illusory paradise this time. In his opinion, given Bao's strength, he wouldn't possibly have encountered any trouble in the illusory paradise, no matter the circumstances. The reason those 3 humans were still alive could only be out of his leniency. They were bound to return with great gains from this trip. This was the important reason why the demons were willing to pay such a great price for the chance to enter the illusory paradise. However, he absolutely didn't expect this twist. It could indeed be seen that the casualties on the human side were disastrous, since only 3 of the 10 that had entered returned alive. And judging from Cai's appearance, she was surely in a very weak state. But more importantly, none of the demons from their group had yet returned alive. The greatest disadvantage of the demons during this operation was their lack of understanding regarding the illusory paradise. All the understanding they had was issued from the demon god emperor's deductions as well as the predictions from the star demon god. No matter what could be said, at least Bao and Leng Xiao hadn't come back yet, and there was still the daughter of the moon demon god to consider. The moon demon god's side was still better off, since this time, it could be said that Yue got a place only because of her relationship with Bao. But none of the devil dragons could be afforded to be lost. Although the demon god emperor was still young in age, his reproducing ability had reached the state where he couldn't possibly have other children. Under these circumstances, if Leng Xiao or Bao were to have died in battle inside the illusory paradise, this would be a devastating catastrophe to the Devil Dragon clan. Since time immemorial, the Devil Dragons were led by the successive generations of demon god emperors, inheriting the pure lineage of the Devil Dragon bloodline. Never before had a demon god emperor of another bloodline been chosen, and atop of that, Bao had already gained a definite prestige within the Devil Dragon clan. It reached the point that if they had died in battle, the demon god emperor was bound to be totally furious and could only take out his anger on him and his group, of which was blocked by Ling Xiao. The crystals from the Devil Dragons were not the same compared to dragon ointment. Dragon ointment was a special substance that Devil Dragons would secrete naturally, serving as a fabulous tonic to humans and demons. But magical crystals weren't the same. Every single magical crystal from the Devil Dragon clan was not only a treasure, but could also be a symbol of the Devil Dragon's ancestors. When one Devil Dragon powerhouse would pass away on the battlefield, all others would use every possible method to retrieve its corpse to return it as an offering to the Devil Dragon clan. Even the Devil Dragons himself wouldn't use their own clansman's magical crystals unless encountering a life-threatening situation, to say nothing of giving it to humans. In the whole demon history, the times humans had obtained Devil Dragon crystals only numbered very few, and each of them had provoked a frantic counterattack from the demons. Even the demon god emperor would personally handle the matter in some cases. Long Houchen indifferently repeated his own words, emphasizing them this time even further. I want 10 Devil Dragon crystals. And I want them immediately. The illusory shrine is on the verge of submerging, so there's still time if you give me the magical crystals now. Otherwise, if we wait for the illusory shrine to submerge, there will be no use even if you want to give them to me at that time. Let me emphasize that I don't want any demon to take offense or act against the Temple Alliance after I obtain these 10 magical crystals, because it is a deal and not me taking them by force. Huang Shuo almost spouted out his own blood. What did this kid take the Devil Dragon's magical crystals for? Mere sweets? Taking these by force? Just try if you dare. With a start, Huang Shuo turned back to look at Long Houchen, noticing that he was lifting his left hand in the direction of the illusory shrine. An insipid green brilliance connected it to the illusory shrine. It looked as if he could really control the illusory shrine and prevent it from sinking down. I think that I showed enough of my good faith. However, I cannot keep waiting for much longer. Long Houchen's voice was heavy as he said that. Magic from behind Long Houchen's back, Zhong Fangfang advanced to his side, raising up both of his hands before calmly yelling, 10, just as no one seemed to have understood what he meant, he retrieved a finger, 9, 8, 7, crap. A countdown like this. How fierce. Han Qian and Ling Xiao looked dumbstruck at Long Houchen and Zhong Fangfang. Let alone Huang Shuo, even the two of them were nervous. Weren't these stenchy youngsters a bit too bold? But no matter whether they could control the enemy's intentions or not, their cooperation was just flawless. Stop counting. Huang Shuo shouted in fury, waving his right hand and letting a light yellow leather bag fly in Long Houchen's direction, without reducing any of the immense pressure he emitted. In a flash, Han Qian appeared in front of Long Houchen and recovered the leather bag. Opening it to look inside, he immediately saw a strong dark green radiance being released. Han Qian blanked out, wearing a feverish expression, before swiftly closing the bag. He nodded in Long Haochun's direction. Within the illusory paradise, we have run into your group of demons several times. The rest of our group was killed by your demons, and the crown of heritage in my hand belonged to a blue flame fiend. The other demons weren't killed by us, but have opposed the illusory paradise by themselves, causing the insurrection of the magical beasts living there, that went all out to dispose of them. Because the three of us haven't harmed any of the magical beasts residing in the illusory paradise, we haven't been involved in the retribution that took place before we appeared. Among your group of demons, the deaths count a few, and the rest have been saved by your demon god emperor. Hearing this reply, although Huang Shuo felt a lot more relaxed, he almost spat out his blood in response. It was for such an information that he had paid 10 magical crystals. What? This time, 2 orange-clad mags approached. Their long orange hair classified them as powerhouses from the Star Demon clan. At this point, those 2 who had had stagnant faces until then immediately revealed their shock, the technique of great prophecy. Bao actually ordered him to use the technique of great prophecy. Very clearly, Long Haochun's declaration wasn't wrong. They could tell because his description of the technique of great prophecy wasn't the least bit wrong. More importantly, only the technique of great prophecy could show such formidable utility, like to actually confine the guardian from this place. Huang Shuo, you owe us an explanation on this matter. Otherwise, you will have to justify yourself before the Star Demon God. 2 Star Demon clan powerhouses approached him in rage. Huang Shuo's expression grew all the more unsightly. Only he knew what kind of mission the Demon God Emperor had given to Bao. He also understood that the reason why Long Haochun chose this timing to cite this detail was that he wanted to sow discord among their ranks. Still, he had no way to refute his words. At once, changes appeared in the atmosphere on the demon's side. After his awakening as a God's chosen one, a certain change happened in the connection between Long Haochun and the eternal melody. There was no more need for a wait of 6 hours, and he faintly sensed that if he wanted to be transported only by himself, he would be able to return to the Tower of Eternity at any time. If he brought his comrades, although the gap of time needed would be longer, it would not be so long as 6 hours. Among his squad, Kia was actually the only one with full battle strength. Wang Yuan had some dazed feeling, thus Long Haochun believed she was wounded. For this reason, after returning to the Tower of Eternity, Long Haochun didn't plan on telling the others about the matter regarding Hao Yue, but wanted instead to bring them back to the priest temple directly as soon as he would be able to. Afterwards, a purple radiance lit up his whole body, and the blood contract between Long Haochun and Hao Yue released its might, immediately transporting him to another world. Magic Long Haochun still clearly remembered about the danger Hao Yue had confronted the last time. At that time, Long Haochun had merely been a knight of the 4th step, whose strength was a far cry from one at the 6th step. That time was indeed very dangerous, but fortunately his luck had been good and he had managed to save Hao Yue in the very end. Long Haochun was now a knight of the 6th step, and after the battle in the Eternal Paradise, he awakened his physique as a God's chosen one, and his spiritual energy even increased marginally. It wasn't only that his internal spiritual energy had now reached 7,000 units, but his external spiritual energy also grew tremendously, reaching a level unknown to Long Haochun. However, he wasn't even close to his prior self, and thus felt extremely confident in being able to save Hao Yue. Now, he was looking forward to Hao Yue's evolved look. Just how much more powerful would he become after this evolution? It was the interest the Demon God Emperor had in Hao Yue that concerned Long Haochun the most. He was almost certain that Hao Yue was the one the Demon God Emperor had been looking for when he had come to Exorcist City. By making a connection with the fact that the Demon God Emperor was looking to obtain a godhead this time, Long Haochun couldn't help but think, could it be that Hao Yue also has a godhead? However, he rapidly shoved this thought away, as this would really be beyond belief. With a glint of purple light, a feeling of reality hit him, and Long Haochun immediately used a holy mantle enveloping him inside. This was already not the first time he was coming to this world, and he remembered about the muddy atmosphere here. If the illusory shrine could be called the entrance to the illusory paradise, this place full of black and red could simply be called hell. Magic right after appearing, Long Hao sensed a dense killing intent, stirring relentlessly right before him. It was Hao Yue. At that moment, Hao Yue's entire body was clouded in dense purple light. His 3 heads were raised, but all his eyes were closed, as he kept chanting some incantation. One could feel that the surrounding muddy natural energies were rushing to Hao Yue's side, turning into dots of shimmering purple brilliances, entering Hao Yue's body after passing through that purple light that surrounded his body. Compared to before, the current Hao Yue was even taller, almost reaching 8 meters in length, and his whole body had become more robust. On his back, the 2 high peaks were even longer, both assuming a triangular shape. The greatest change was, however, on his head. The bulge on the left side of his 3 large heads was reaching the size of his other 3 heads, and the same went for the bulge on the right side. My good brother, I came. Do your best to evolve, and leave the rest to me. Saying that, Long Hao turned around to face the outside. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.